Hello and welcome to RwandaTV News. I am Isabel Masozera. This is what we have coming up. President Paul Kagame has held discussions with his Indonesian counterpart, His Excellency Joko Widodo, who is the current head of the G20. And local residents living in Rwanda near the country's border with the DRC have continued with their daily activities despite the war raging on in the neighboring country. And later, the facilitator of the East African Community-led Nairobi peace process in the eastern region of the DRC, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, on Monday had a packed day engaging local community leaders and government officials on the protracted security situation in the eastern DRC. Thanks for choosing RwandaTV News. Top of our edition today, President Paul Kagame has held discussions with his Indonesian counterpart, His Excellency Joko Widodo, who is the current head of the G20. The two leaders spoke on the sidelines of the G20 summit that is taking place in Bali, focused on the bilateral ties that exist between the two nations. The African leader also discussed the second session of the G20 summit under the theme Global Health Architecture, elaborating on what must be done to eliminate inequality in global health. His Excellency Paul Kagame also attended sessions on food security and energy. Moving on, local residents living in Rwanda near areas around the country's border with the DRC have continued with their daily activities despite the war raging on in the neighboring country. Farms are being cultivated as usual, and social events such as wedding ceremonies have also continued without any hindrance, with the local residents saying they have nothing to fear because the country's borders are heavily defended by Rwanda Defense Force. It has now been 5 days since the fighting erupted between the DRC's armed forces and the rebel group known as M23, prompting 114 Congolese nationals to flee across the border into Rwanda, where they are being currently catered for by the government of Rwanda, UNHCR, and Rwandan local residents. Staying on what's happening in the eastern DRC, the facilitator of the East African Community-led Nairobi peace process in the eastern region of the DRC, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, on Monday had a packed day engaging local community leaders as well as government officials on the protracted security situation in the eastern DRC. His Excellency Kenyatta was joined by the EAC Secretary General Dr. Peter Mathuki and special representatives of the President Felix Antoine Tshisekedi, Professor Serge Kibangu. His Excellency Kenyatta engaged with the civil society structures of the South Kivu, the North Kivu, DRC Prime Minister His Excellency Jean-Michel Sama Lukode, also President of the National Assembly Honorable Christopher Mboso Hodia, and the President of the Senate, Modeste Bahati Lukwebo. He also engaged with the community from leaders as well as Uturi and members of the diplomatic corps, President Kenyatta, so to understand their perspective on the situation and their recommendations on solving the situation. Thereafter, the facilitator held a press briefing updating the media on the meetings.
We have not come here with any particular mindset to dictate what should happen, but rather in the spirit of our understanding and the mandate that has been given to us. We came here to listen to the people of the Congo Because our job
Parce que notre travail,
is not to tell them what they need to do,
pas de leur dicter ce
but
qu'ils
just to
doivent
help facilitate
faire, plutôt
and bring
faciliter les
peace
choses pour que les
amongst
retours
the
du paix
different
parmi les
parties.
communautés.
We have had that
Et
opportunity
nous avons eu cette opportunité
and we have heard a lot,
et
we
nous
have
avons
internalized
entendu
a lot,
beaucoup, nous avons intériorisé
and we're looking
beaucoup
forward.
aussi,
And the message that we have today
et là nous évoluons par rapport au message que
is
nous
that
avons
all
entendu
groups
aujourd'hui.
who currently bear arms
Et tous les groupes qui ont enterré
should lay
leurs armes
those
de guerre,
arms down
qui ont
and
déposé
choose the
leurs
path
armes et qui ont
of
choisi
peace
la voie ou le sentier
through
de la paix
dialogue,
à travers le dialogue,
because there is nothing
parce qu'il n'y a plus rien
that can be gained
qui fait
through the barrel of a gun.
vaincre dans la bataille de guerre.
The people want peace.
Et le peuple veut la paix.
The people are tired of
Le
war.
peuple
His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta also commented on how all facilitators on the situation in the eastern DRC are working towards the same goal.
The Nairobi process is a process of bringing these groups together.
Et c'est dans l'optique du processus Nairobi de ramener
It
tous
is
ces
working
peuples
side by side
et de travailler main dans main
with a previous initiative
avec
that was started
antérieure que nous avons
under the Great Lakes,
entamé dans les cadres de la région de Grand Lac,
led by President
conduit par le président
Lorenzo of Angola,
Lorenzo de l'Angola,
which we refer to as the Rwanda process,
et qui se réfère à la feuille de route du Rwanda,
to re-establish
au sixièmement
cordial relations between
la confiance mutuelle
the Democratic Republic
entre
of
la
the
République
Congo
démocratique du Congo
and Rwanda.
et le Rwanda.
That process is led
Ce processus
by President Lorenzo,
est conduit par le président Ngolé
and he
Lorenzo,
was here.
et il était ici.
I think he shuttled between
Je pense qu'il a
Kigali and Kinshasa. I think it was last week.
Il a été à Kigali, mais aussi à
But the
Kinshasa
two processes
la semaine dernière. Les deux
are tied
processus
to the hip,
se rejoignent
and we are working together
et nous travaillons ensemble
with President Lorenzo,
avec le président Lorenzo,
because ultimately, as we bring peace to the internal groups, we also want to
l'objectif
see
c'est de
peace
ramener la paix et nous tenons
and
à voir
cordial
la paix,
relations
mais aussi la
between
confiance mutuelle
all
parmi
of DRC's neighbors.
That was the facilitator of the EAC-led Nairobi peace process in the eastern region of the DRC, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta. Moving on, Rwanda's parliamentarians on the Political Affairs and Gender Committee have announced that they are going to reinforce collaboration with the concerned institutions to find solutions to the issues affecting citizens, fighting corruption and unjust rulings on cases. Prince Manzi brings us this report.
It is in the discussions on issues raised in the Ombudsperson 2021-2022 report that include delay of litigation natural resources cases, bad services of land limitation, and inefficiency of some mediators. Deputies in the parliament discussed these with the Ombudsperson and requested to be solved expeditiously as these cases might favor corruption crimes. The first concern is that it states the Ombudsperson has the responsibility of requesting the Supreme Court to redo the court cases that were unjustly concluded, but I want to ask what the Supreme Court does for the judge in this case. Are there penalties? The law was amended in favor of the benefits of the property owner in the auction, where it was demonstrated that if in the first and second days of the auction the price won't exceed 75%, the property owner would deny further steps, but at the third time they would continue with the largest amount between the stated prices in the previous days. But also, the property owner has the right of finding a buyer. The Ombudsperson, Madeleine Nirere, demonstrates that there are issues found every year that include land-related issues and strengthening how the auctions are done as it results into corruption and injustice.
Issues concerning the changes in land ages for the land documents to be the same with the actual land, because it was found that there are disputes that result from this. Also, there are still issues of delayed compensations, because you find that there are delays of 2014 and beyond. About auctions, we use technology, but the issue is that the price is still low. There are ways that the bank can benefit from the property. For instance, if it's a hotel or a house for rent, it can be gaining its renting funds until the debt is covered, but the problem is that they are all eager for auction.
Parliamentarians on the Committee on Political Affairs and Gender took a decision of discussing with governing bodies in charge of such cases and find sustainable solutions. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Prince. Now, the National Bank of Rwanda revealed that it has increased the rate of the central bank to 50 basis points to 6.5% to reduce inflation pressures and preserve the consumer's purchasing power. Prince Manzi once more.
The National Bank of Rwanda demonstrates that Rwanda's headline inflation increased to 16.4% in the third quarter of 2022 from 12.9% in the second quarter of 2022. It is now projected to average around 13.2% at the end of 2022, with 1.1% higher compared to the August 2022 projection. The National Bank of Rwanda elaborates that this is due to the continued global economic challenges, as well as lower domestic agriculture production and the war between Russia and Ukraine. The National Bank states that the prices will remain high till the first quarter of the next year, 2023, but reduce gradually in the second quarter. The governor of the Central Bank of Rwanda, John Rwangombwa, states that this reduction will be due to different measurements in place, including the increase of the central bank rate to 6.5% from the 6% set in August.
And we saw all the components of the inflation increasing in the last quarter, core inflation increasing 10.4 to 12.9. Though the increase is not big here, but because of the share of core inflation into the overall basket of goods, this is the biggest driver of the continued increase in inflation in general. The biggest jump is in food inflation because of poor agricultural performance this year. That is linked to the poor contribution of agriculture to overall economic performance. We saw agriculture inflation really increasing from 16.4 to 29.7. So this had a big contribution to the increase in domestic inflation that you saw. And when you look at the overall year, we've revised our projections to 13.2% annual average inflation for 2022 from 12.1% we had projected in the last quarter. This is also linked to the high inflation we saw in October, breaching the 20% mark. So we expect this high inflation to remain entering into the new year, but we expect to see it going down in the second half of the year to our level of between 8 and 2 going forward. So because of these high inflationary pressures we see by the end of the year, we've decided as a central bank to increase the policy rate to 6.5 from 6% that we had to continue fighting this inflation and bring it back to our band.
The Central Bank of Rwanda demonstrates that Rwanda's merchandise exports rose by 39.9% in the third quarter of 2022, but also the merchandise imports rose by 38.9%. This high increase in imports widened the trade deficit by 38.3%. The governor of the Central Bank of Rwanda states that this will not destabilize the financial sector of the country.
Outlook for the financial sector, based on the numbers, based on the projections we see, we expect the financial sector to remain sound and stable because it's well capitalized. Liquidity buffers are strong. Quality of their assets are improving. So we see this to remain strong, but again, we remain engaged as a supervisor and regulator to ensure or to identify any channels of shocks and to work with the industry to deal with them to avoid it destabilizing the sector.
The positive growth outlook for services and industry is expected to outweigh the weak performance in agriculture. Thus, a recent upward revision of economic growth projections for 2022 from 6.0% to 6.8%. The National Bank of Rwanda states that the total assets of the financial sector grew by 18.85% to 8,577 million in September 2022 from 7,219 million in September 2021. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Now, Rwanda Governance Board has urged NGOs to disclose how they are funded and what the funds are allocated towards to rule out criminal activity with terrorist groups as well as misallocation of public funds. Precious Kirezi now reports.
Non-government organizations are often financially facilitated by international entities and governments. However, their funds are sometimes derived from partnerships with terrorist groups, hence being an effect of criminal activity, which the country director of Plan International Rwanda has shed light on.
The nature of international NGOs is we do get funding from external entities. Even though this funding comes to Rwanda and is for good purposes, we want to make sure that we also comply with international and local regulations. So it is important for us to pay attention to where our money comes from, to make sure that it is clean money and it goes through the system properly. So it is important for us to pay attention to where our money comes from, to make sure that it is clean money and it goes through the system properly and it is well handled, so that the accountability question is always answered. Where do you get your money from? Have you followed all the regulations, and make sure that we do not in any way contribute to money laundering and terrorist financing.
Rwanda Governance Board commends the role non-government organizations are consistently playing in the progressive journey towards Vision 2050, in addition to the emphasis drawn on the country's intentions to maintain sustainable development and an economy free of crime, which RGB's CEO has detailed.
ntago twifuza gukoresha amafaranga afite ibikorwa by'ubugizi bwa nabi akomoka.
We don't want to use money attained from criminal activity, and we have a duty to our country to stray away from that. There are lines we're unwilling to cross for development, and the NGOs have been reminded of this and encouraged not to indulge in illegal dealings, which will be implemented with the initiation of a system designed to weed out money laundering and criminal activity disguised as development strategy.
cyangwa mu bikorwa bindi igihugu cyacu cyemeje kurwanya.
The network of international NGOs in Rwanda comprises of more than 70 members and allocates approximately $2,000 to community development projects annually. Precious Tirezi, RTV News.
Thank you, Precious. Now to health matters. Experts in maternal and child health care urge parents to be more involved in programs related to prenatal checkups, plus giving birth from hospitals in a bid to reduce maternal and neonatal mortality during childbirth. Olivon Tete with the details.
At Muhima Hospital in Nyarugenge district, some mothers who gave birth a day ago say that their health and their children's is in a good condition. They received me well. They took care of me like a mother. Me and my child, we are in a good condition. My son was born weighing 3 kilograms and 700 grams. Statistics from Muhima Hospital show that in a month, there are between 500 and 600 normal delivery and between 400 and 500 cesarean sections. Dr. Etienne Tuisenge, a gynecologist at this hospital, notes that among the strategies to prevent various problems that may arise during birth, prenatal care is advised.
We teach them the warning sign that can prompt them to go to the doctor. This includes bleeding if the child does not play in the womb. Someone may have a high blood pressure without knowing that they have it. When she comes from prenatal care, she gets to find out, and that may prevent various problems that she may face. This means that even if she faces a problem during delivery, the doctors have enough time to take care of her.
abaganga mubona igihe gihagije cyo kumwitaho.
Dr. Tuyisenge also points out that multiple pregnancies are a risk factor that can lead to maternal or neonatal mortality.
Umuntu bazwe gatanu no bazwe rimwe ntago byoroha kimwe nigiye mumufata mu maga hari ibyo.
A mother who had 5 surgeries and the one who had only 1 surgery is not as easy as when they take to do cesarean section. It becomes difficult when she had multiple surgeries. Sometimes they both get stuck together and you find that the intestines are attached to the uterus and the bladder, which makes the doctor, even if he is an expert, he faces difficulties during the cesarean. When a mother gives a birth every year, she loses a lot of blood and she remains with low blood count, which increases the risk of bleeding.
Maternal mortality refers to deaths of mothers due to complications from pregnancy, during childbirth, or 6 weeks after giving birth. The acting director of the Department of Maternal and Child Health at the Rwanda Biomedical Center, Sibomana Hassan, points out that one of the strategies to reduce these maternal deaths is the iron supplements that mothers receive during pregnancy.
Ni kinini dutanga iyo umubyeyi aje gupimisha inda agomba gufata buri munsi kugeza mu byukuri byibuze igihe azabyarira.
It is a pill that we give a pregnant woman when they come for a prenatal care. She must take it every day until she gives a birth. It helps us to solve the problem of receiving a mother who comes to give birth with the problem of less blood count. And we know that during the birth, she also loses so much blood, which could lead to death. One of the reasons that lead to maternal death is postpartum hemorrhage. Bleeding after giving birth and having less blood count may lead to death. It is really hard to manage that patient who lost so much blood while she didn't have much blood.
According to the Rwanda Biomedical Center, the country has made steady progress in maternal and child health because in the year 2000, maternal deaths were 1,071 in 100,000 mothers. In 2015, the number of deaths decreased to 210, while in 2020 it was 203. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive. The Embassy of Angola in Rwanda celebrated the country's 47th anniversary since its independence. Some of the Angolans living in Rwanda say they are proud and credit what they have achieved to the good relations between the two countries. Adam Squizera filed this report.
On 11th November 1975, Angola found its independence after a war lasted 13 years, which is known as the Angolan War of Independence. On Tuesday, the Angolan embassy in Rwanda joined with Angolans living in Rwanda to celebrate the 47th anniversary of their country's independence. Some of the youth from Angola living in Rwanda expresses the development of Angola as the true meaning of independence.
As that doctor said, Independence Day is not just some simple day, it's a freedom. As freedom in our heart, we have to accept it's not just a freedom from the war, but a freedom from our mind also to do what we have to do and to remind always on our life, like I'm free, I have to do what out of that stuff. I can recognize myself, I can do whatever I can do because I'm freedom by that day.
As an Angolan, 47 years old, means a lot of development, of independence, of freedom.
On the day to mark of independence of Angola, in Rwanda, there were various discussions that brought together the lecturers of the two countries, where they related to the opportunities available on both sides, especially in the sector of education, as Dr. Ishmael Buchanan, a lecturer at the University of Rwanda, explains. We had time to discuss on available opportunities of both countries. It really shows how far Angola it is in the development of various sectors like education. As for them, they have even achieved advanced education. So as in discussions, we decided to make an exchange of information as lecturers of the both countries. The ambassador of Angola to Rwanda, Eduardo Filomeno Balba Leilo Octavio, reiterated on developing relations with other countries, especially Rwanda, as one of the most achievements in the last 47 years of the country's independence.
Achieved independence during a difficult moment when our country was invaded by the foreign army for to strengthening the relationship. This and cooperation with Rwanda and in the many sectors.
Angola is a country with a population of 32.9 million, which is also a country rich in various types of minerals, petroleum and gas, which has recently signed an agreement with Rwanda on cooperation in various sectors. Adam Squizera, RTV News.
Moving on, the Ministry of Health plans to vaccinate more than 2 million children between the ages of 5 and 11 years with the COVID-19 vaccine. Statistics show that in more than a month since the program started, more than 1 million children have already received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Pediatricians have noted that the vaccination assists in preventing negative effects that may arise when children get infected.
Before the start of the program of vaccinating children between 5 and 11 years, some parents expressed concern about their children's health. However, some of the parents who participated in this program say that they found it important to vaccinate their children from this pandemic. Before getting vaccinated, we thought that it would be harmful, but since we took the vaccine and felt well, there was nothing to worry about when it came to our children. My child brought the consent forms and I signed them. Then they vaccinated him.
Because of how the pandemic was shock to us and affecting the citizens, we thought it would be better to vaccine our children, even though we were worried as parents, but it was the right thing to do.
However, even though there are parents who still express concern towards this program, some of the headmasters of schools note that there is continued cooperation with the parents in the betterment of the program.
The program is going well. We started with those in P5 and P6. Now we are vaccinating those in P4. And soon we proceed with those in P3 and P2 because parents are now familiar with it. They do participate at higher rate than what we expected.
Siwamana Hassan, Acting Director of Maternal and Child Health at the Rwanda Biomedical Center, points out that vaccinating children against COVID-19 is important because it prevents long-term effects that may occur if a child gets infected with COVID-19.
Yeah, actually the danger of COVID infection to kids, so actually kids can have some issues after getting this disease. So one of the biggest issue is just to develop what we call MIS, multi-inflammatory syndrome. Like heart disease, this is very important, but also some kidney disease. So this is really something to be prevented. So this is why we need to vaccinate kids so that just in case they can even have this disease, so they may not develop this kind of issues after recovery. And also it is very important to vaccinate kids because actually, you know, kids can be the source of infection to adult people. They live together within the household.
He continues by explaining that the dose given to children between 5 and 11 years old is 1/3 of that given to adults, and also reassures parents about this Pfizer vaccine that is being administered to children.
The vaccine we are using for vaccinating kids, so actually it is Pfizer vaccine. So it is not very different from the one we are using for adult people. So what is different is just dosage, because actually for kids we are providing 10 micrograms, while in adults, first dose, second dose, even booster dose. So we have been using 30 micrograms instead of 10 we are giving to kids.
According to the Rwanda Biomedical Center, more than 1 million children between 5 and 11 years old have already received the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine, and more than 48,000 have received the second dose of the vaccine. It is expected that during this program, more than 2 million children will be vaccinated. Olive Nete, RTV News.
And with that, we come to the end of our bulletin today. Always a pleasure knowing you're watching here in Rwanda and beyond. Isabel Masozara is my name, and on behalf of the entire team here at RBA, thanks for watching.